There really is nothing like winning on the opening day of a season because you get this intoxicating euphoria of a 1,000 winning percentage right out of the gates, and the excitement sort of builds week over week. And a great example is 2 years ago, even without fans, winning 4 games to start the year was an incredible accomplishment, one that I won't forget for a very long time. Now, conversely, when you lose on opening day and under really poor performances or circumstances, the doom, the gloom, the dread, and all the negativity starts to pass on and build upon itself to what is supposed to be a glorious occasion, that being our home opener. So I'm going to dissect what happened on Saturday. And the good news about doing a show on Tuesday is it gives me time to truly reflect, take all the emotion and the immediate feelings away, and do this in what I hope to be a rational show that is supported by some fact and analytics, because there's a lot of irrational talk in the Twitter sphere and around Aston Villa right now. To help me dissect this show, a steady, solid, reliable, dependable Scotch, Auchentoshan 12. This punches way above its price range as we dissect Bournemouth 2, Aston Villa 0. Now, I've got a brand new feature for my show, and that is I'm going to present the GIF that best represents how I feel following a game. This is from the motion picture masterpiece known as Step Brothers. Honestly, I don't know how the movie or John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell didn't win Oscars for their roles in this. And this is the cinematic treasure that is the white dog poo scene where Will Ferrell's character is forced to lick some white dog poo by a band of marauding children. This is exactly how I felt, in shock, in disbelief, slightly nauseous, obviously embarrassed, afterwards humiliated, and potentially scarred. Seriously, if you have not seen this motion picture, even if you don't like North American comedies, it is right up there with the classics Dodgeball, Talladega Nights, and the Austin Powers trilogy. All right, here we go. It's the Holy Trinity show, which means 3 key issues or moments that defined Bournemouth 2, Aston Villa 0, starting with the statistical story. And I did a Twitter poll asking you what statistics you looked for after games. And so I've used all of those and then added one at the end. So we have the XG, shots on target, accurate passes, big chances, possession. I've added accurate crosses in this game because it was a bit of an anomaly and it was an issue. And this was a dire game from an XG standpoint, neither team doing much. Shots on target, look at that, 15 attempts by Villa, only 2 on target, whereas Bournemouth had 7 attempts, 3 were on target, 2 of them goals. Villa's passing was accurate, but so slow. No big chances created. Possession, when they have the bulk of it, they don't win. That's Aston Villa, but accurate crosses. While Bournemouth had 4, and 2 of them ultimately led to goals, Villa had only 6, which was a 19% success rate. One of the key issues in this game was the fact that Aston Villa simply did not look mentally prepared to start that game. I don't know why that is. Did they look past Bournemouth as being a newly promoted side that the manager of the team himself said is not as good as the team that got promoted? Nice mind games there by Scott Parker, not just for the opposition, but for his own team and his board. Was it the fact that the Australia trip finally caught up to Aston Villa? This was a majorly taxing preseason, and they were pushed to the limit physically, mentally, and through travel. They had to come back from Australia, immediately go to France. That is going to take its toll. I'd love to know who's responsible for winding the team up prior to the game. Is it John McGinn? What does he say to them? How much emphasis does he put on the importance of the first 5 to 10 minutes of this game? Was it Steven Gerrard continuing to impress upon them as they did the entire lead up to this game of how important it was to not give away cheap corners and free kicks, because that is going to be Bournemouth's bread and butter. Later, I'm going to show you the succession of events that preceded the defining moment of the match, which occurred just 2 minutes in. And you will plainly see that Aston Villa was not mentally prepared at the start of this game. Another massive, monstrous, recurring issue. Might as well just let the record keep skipping and saying it again and again and again, because it is how often we look lightweight in the midfield and get bullied in the middle third of the park. John McGinn doesn't have size this way. He has it this way, all below his waist. Douglas Luiz is not an imposing character. Neither is Emi Buendia or Phil Coutinho. Boubacar Kamara has the size. He needs to bulk up like Jacob Ramsey, and it's not like you need big, strong, brawny guys every game, but for this one you did, especially when you have Solanke and Moore dropping off, and then you have Billing chopping and charging and tackling and hacking everybody. I mean, they all scared Phil Coutinho out of the very pockets that he needs to play in to be successful. Here's a beautiful example of why we need a player who can turn defending into attacking, who could win tackles and duels in midfield, hopefully with a little bit of physical presence, so that Aston Villa can transition in certain times of the game, like this one where we're trailing. And look at this, Bournemouth have committed men forward. It's incredible. They have players in our defensive third, which means there's an imbalance somewhere, there's space somewhere. And what does Emi Martinez do? He plays urgent. He claims the ball, and then he quickly bowls it straight up the middle for John McGinn. There's players ahead of him, and he's tackled right off the ball. And not only are we now not advancing and potentially setting free Leon Bailey or a Danny Ings, but it's Bournemouth back in attack until we address this particular position and find that player who can evade tackles, win duels, and turn defending into attacking. We are not progressing as a football club. Big issue or moment number 3, straight up, it was team selection. I was shocked and surprised that the team sheet on early Saturday morning did not reflect, in my mind, the best performers from the preseason, namely Callum Chambers. Now, we did hear that post the Fulham closed doors game that they won 1-0, he had some kind of an illness, and that might have affected his preparation for Saturday. I can understand that one. Similarly, with Tyrone Mings, he apparently had a niggle in training, so you could see maybe that did impact the selection. However, on Friday, the manager said before the media in the build-up to the game, everyone is available for selection. And you have to feel for Tyrone Mings here. He's been stripped of the captaincy. He's our aerial duel, clearance, and blocks leader. One of the best in the league in all 3 categories, potentially playing against his former side, which happens to have a lot of big boys in it. It might have helped ease the sting of the previous week for Tyrone Mings to play in that game. Ezri Konsa was coming off an injury in preseason. I was surprised when he was already back, and that's great news, and I want him to succeed because there's so much potential there. But in my opinion, he took a step back last year, and a lot of it was because it seemed like at times he was out of control. Now, I understand that he paired with Carlos in France, so there's some continuity there, but it was still a head scratcher for me that he started. And this is the 2-0 goal. So my first question here is, why is it Konsa who's coming out to close this second ball down? Because shouldn't that be Luca Dean? Shouldn't Konsa be in the middle of the box contesting a possible return and aerial duel? I would have thought, but you tell me, is this committed enough? I mean, from that angle, that's a pretty good look at it. Is that contesting this cross enough? Maybe there's a better angle to show you. Let's see from this side. Well, here he is straight on. Is this contesting this cross enough? I don't think so. How about one more view? Let's see. Here, this is a good look. Is he closing down with enough commitment here to stop this cross from happening? I don't think he is. And listen, a lot of people say that Ezri Konsa is the most competitive guy in training next to Emi Buendia. That's great. I would love for him to give up some of that competition and be more cool, in control, and measured. And I'll show you the 1-0 goal and his role in it a little later. Now, as for Danny Ings, I suppose I could see if they thought they needed a fox-in-the-box type poacher who was going to get on the end of some pieces in the Bournemouth area, or maybe convert a penalty, then yes, One could see why Danny Ings would start up front. If they wanted to go through Bournemouth with intricate one-touch passing, okay, maybe somebody releases Danny Ings and he gets on the end of it. But Bournemouth plays with 5 at the back and a bunch of big lugs in that group who are excellent at winning aerial duels. He is not. And we didn't go around or through. We tried to go over Bournemouth because that's what we had to end up resorting to. And in that case, Ollie Watkins is better at winning aerial duels, and he is certainly much better at occupying central defenders and physically challenging them to wear them down or to create space for his teammates. My big concern with Danny Ings right now, and it's been a concern for quite some time, is that there simply isn't any explosiveness to his running or his shooting. I mean, this is one of the best chances that he had in the game, and it was well worked. Beautiful flick. He shapes up to shoot, but again, running into that spot and then releasing the shot just had no pop to it whatsoever. And this is an area we are very, very deficient from. Shots from range. And Ollie Watkins isn't very convincing from this area either. This is something that we need to improve in our squad because these are areas at least we're getting into. And the last word on team selection is Emi Buendia and how he's being deployed in this squad. I honestly think the technical staff have it the wrong way around. I think it should be Buendia who starts and Phil Coutinho who comes on later to either manage a game or exploit an opponent that is chasing the game. Emi Buendia is simply more urgent on the football. He's trying to make things happen actively, splitting the opponent open, trying to find teammates. He doesn't do it all the time. In fact, he misses a lot of those passes. However, in a risk-reward analysis, he only needs to do it once. And if that's the first goal, it changes the game. And in my opinion, this Aston Villa squad is designed and built to force the opponent to play. And once they scored, Bournemouth didn't need to play. They could bunker. So this was even more difficult for Coutinho, who you think is the right guy to be able to link up with Ings in pockets or Bailey or one of the fullbacks. But it just wasn't happening. And I know Scott Parker would have told his players, whether they led or not, just get in his face, crowd him out, be physical with him, and he'll play negative and go backwards. And that's exactly what happened. Now, in a game where Villa leads, well, he can dictate the tempo. He can keep possession, play in teammates, make sure that they have the bulk of the ball, or when the other team is trying to fight back and chase a game, he's the one who can spring the counterattack and set his teammates free, potentially for the 2 or 3-0 type goal. Key issue or moment number 2, in-game tweaks. Worst case scenario for us, we fell behind to a team like that so early because they are not interested in playing football. Did you see any discernible evidence of a change in tact, systems, formation that changed the game or caused them problems? Because I didn't. Now, I fully understand that Steven Gerrard is a classic manager who delegates a lot of his coaching responsibility to others. That's fine. Steven Gerrard was brought in to up the standards, the professionalism, the expectations, and the profile of Aston Villa Football Club, and I am all for it if he has competent people around him. But who makes those decisions in game? And are they strong or brave enough to say, Gaffer, this isn't working, we've got to change this now? And again, it has to be something other than substitutions. And I hope that that coaching staff is strong enough to do that, because for so long, Steven Gerrard has relied on Michael Beale. In fact, maybe too much. Maybe part of the problem is they haven't weaned themselves off of the system that Beale was trying to implement for the last little while. One of the things I noticed in this game and throughout the preseason was that Leon Bailey and Matt Cash are getting in each other's way. Both players operating on the right side of the park that love to drive the ball and take players on. Well, why do we need two in virtually the same area of the field? And by the way, that's not the only example. It happens all over the park where there's redundancy, and this tells me that the players are still trying to figure out their roles and their thinking rather than playing freely. So why couldn't, for example, in game, Leon Bailey switch over to the left-hand side, which is his natural side? He's a lefty. And then you have balance. Cash on this side driving, Bailey on this side driving, or maybe Bailey comes central. And while I'm on the subject of Leon Bailey, why is he not taking the corners? He has the most deadly and effective delivery straight from the corner on the entire team. And he didn't serve one up in that game. And the number one big issue or moment that defined Bournemouth 2, Villa 0, it's the 1-0 goal. I mean, Steven Gerrard said afterwards, and in the lead-up, so much emphasis on this match was on defensive set-piece work and trying to not give away cheap set pieces, because that was an obvious avenue for this Bournemouth side that, let's be honest, man for man, simply does not measure up quality-wise. So I can only imagine how much the manager was fuming in the sequences that led up to the corner and then the issues from the corner itself. I've said it before, it's never just one mistake that leads to a goal, but a series of breakdowns that precede a goal allowed. And in this case, it started with a lazy and totally unnecessary foul by Luca Dean in the opposition half when there was never any danger. It wasn't his best day, and he wasn't the only one. There will be a few guys that will be dreading the video analysis after that one. So Bournemouth wins possession on a very lazy foul. They play a long ball, and I've sung his praises. I think he's an awesome signing. He's been tremendous in the preseason, and I believe he's going to be an excellent Premier League center back. But this is Diego Carlos's first ever aerial duel in the Premier League. And he's not even close. Not even close. And this is where I talk about mental preparation to start the game. Were these guys ready? Not even close there. Then, Jacob Ramsey, I'm not sure what he's doing here, but what is his motivation here? What is the number one thing he needs to do in this situation right here? Because that Bournemouth player there, he's not going anywhere. He's not going to cross the ball in from there. He's not going to go back up the line. He is completely boxed himself out. They've talked about it in the lead up. They talked about it pregame, postgame. Do not give away cheap corners. And what does Jacob Ramsey do? He's lazy here, and he just pokes it out. We'll deal with it from the corner, even though the gaffer's been saying don't give away cheap corners or free kicks from these kinds of areas. He could have just been patient, and he wasn't. Is that mentally being tired? Can't be. This is a minute in. And then from the corner. Well, let's have a look from the close angle here. Who's responsible for that first contact? The first contact is critical. You don't get the first contact, everything else falls apart from there. Whose man is this? There is nobody even close. That's maybe not the best view, but you could see Konza's nowhere near it. Maybe from the behind view, there's Luca Dean, by the way. There was this urban legend going around. He wasn't on the field for this goal, but he's right there. Look at Konza. Look at Bailey. Look at Carlos. Nobody is anywhere near the first contact. Might Tyrone Mings have been near that particular angle? Again, from here, nobody's even close. And once you've lost that one, trouble ensues. And so, 2 minutes in, Bournemouth has their game plan sorted. They've whipped themselves up. They've whipped the crowd into a frenzy. Now they can drop into 2 banks of 5. Not quite Brisbane Roar-like, but a low block that Villa had to try to get around, but the crossing wasn't good enough. Get through, the passing wasn't good enough, or go over, and the quality wasn't good enough. And frankly, Danny Ings playing against that back three, it was bread and butter for those guys winning those aerial duels time after time. Now, I want to bring up this point because Steven Gerrard is taking it on the chin right now, and maybe there is some reason for criticism, but man, a plan cannot change in a week, month, even a year sometimes. Steven Gerrard does not sit in a dugout with a joystick and control his players. He had no control over Luca Dean taking a lazy foul that led to the change in possession in the first place. He had no control over Diego Carlos badly being outleapt in an aerial duel. and he had no control over Jacob Ramsey for some reason deciding to poke the ball off for a cheap corner less than 2 minutes into the game, not to mention what happened on the marking on the 1-0 goal. So I'm sorry to have to tell you, if you were hoping for a Steven Gerrard witch hunt here, that at some point the players need to take responsibility. Once they cross the white line, control is lost from the dugout. And this is a classic example of the early, hard uppercut to the jaw. 2 minutes in, Aston Villa staggering around the ring, barely able to stand because they'd been told for a week and in the pregame, don't give away cheap free kicks or corners and make sure we defend cleanly for set pieces. That's now back of their mind. Oh my goodness, our game plan has fallen to pieces. What do we do now? And they never recovered. And then Scott Parker's side, well, they played it perfectly. Every single time Aston Villa got a hold of the ball, what did they do? Well, there was suddenly an injury and a player needing treatment. And I recorded on my stopwatch the minutes that they wasted. The minutes were 9:30.62. That's almost 10% of a game they spent on the floor receiving treatment, chopping, stopping, grinding the game to a halt, and then they got a second bonus goal. And that's how you do it. That's how Bournemouth is going to have to do it, because it's not a very good side. And that's the thing that hurts the most out of all of this. New season, new updatable stats. I might add some different ones to this mix, because these might get a little bit boring after a while, but haven't played at Villa Park yet. Not a good start away. No VAR decisions, no goals for Ings or Watkins. -2 on the set piece, plus and minus. Against the bottom six, I'm sorry, if you're a newly promoted side, you count as a bottom six team, and that's where Bournemouth is going to be, in my opinion, for the bulk of the season. And Emi Martinez is going to wait a week, at least, for a clean sheet. All right, let's look ahead to the weekend and get a scouting report on Everton, who lost 1-0 to Chelsea at home. It was a late first half penalty. Chelsea had the bulk of the ball, but there were spells that Everton looked okay. Their challenge, though, is no more Richarlison, and they now have no Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's injured, so they really don't have an established number 9. And even worse in this game, they lost 2 defenders. Ben Godfrey was stretchered off. It was awful. And then Yari Mina hobbled off later. Not sure if he's going to be available for the weekend. They still have James Tarkowski, who they got from Burnley, along with Dwight McNeil, who I think is a very good player. And how about this? Did you hear that they may just land Connor Cody from Wolves in time for the game on Saturday? That's a disaster. Cody is a Villa killer. Anthony Gordon played up front for Everton in the Chelsea game, and I think this is a player, not just from open play, but from set pieces as well. So he's a worry that they're going to have to be aware of. But honestly, Villa has had Everton's number over the last couple of seasons. I mean, they blanked them twice last year, going 6 out of 6. And I simply cannot believe that Aston Villa will have anything close to as lackluster a performance as they did last Saturday. So I'm going to be positive, and I think there is going to be a major response from the home side. Because if there isn't, the negativity and the toxicity will be unbearable heading to Crystal Palace. And there you have it, my first match review of the season. I honestly didn't think it was going to go that way, but we remain positive, we remain measured. Hitting the panic button right now is so silly and so pointless. The technical staff will reflect. They'll look back on it, hopefully with measured eyes, and there's no chance that Aston Villa will look like that for a home game on Saturday against Everton. And it's funny, I saw a great interview with Brendan Rodgers, who was asked, what would you go back in time and tell yourself as a younger manager? And he said, don't ever pick your next team on the bus ride or the car ride home from that previous game. Sage advice. You need a couple of days, decompress, and let's look forward, stay positive, and of course, up the mighty Villa.